I'm a 2025 bride getting married in Malibu, California, and this is what I thought I was going to spend versus what I actually spent. When I first got engaged, this is the note tab that I opened up and I just started listing things. So this is when I was clueless. Okay, starting off, I really wasn't that far off with the venue. I estimated that we would spend $15,000. We ended up spending a little over $19,300, and we are going to book some extra stuff, so it will go up, but that is where we're at. Next up is a wedding planner. I did not think I was going to book a wedding planner, so I put 0, and I ended up spending $5,000 on that. Okay, my wedding dress, I was super off on this. We estimated $5,000. It ended up being $13,188, but she is stunning, so it's worth it. Okay, flowers and decorations, these are together because I estimated $4,000 for floral and decor, $2,000. We ended up working with a designer who's doing all of our floral, all of our decor, along with all of our rentals for $31,500. Okay, catering, I would say I wasn't like too far off. I estimated $5,000. We ended up spending $10,360.
Literally.
And I'll just say, obviously, I was super clueless with the cost of everything. Okay, music and entertainment, I estimated $500, and we spent $2,642, which also includes something fun for our guests. Okay, photography was like the hardest thing for me to book because it's one of the most important, but I'm so happy with who we went with. Our engagement photos are gorgeous. $4,000 is what we estimated, and it was $6,000. The ones that don't have a blue heart are things that we still need to book, so these are just my estimates. Bridesmaids gifts, I estimated $300. It ended up being a little over $700. Groomsmen's gifts, I estimated $300, and it ended up being $400. Videography, I estimated $4,000, and we ended up spending $5,300. I absolutely knew I needed a content creator. I estimated that would be about $1,000. It ended up being $1,500. Okay, we have not sent out invitations yet, but I have gotten our save the dates. I did not add up the cost of that yet. Wedding favors, obviously, we haven't done that. Hair and makeup, I do have this booked because I knew I needed to book this far in advance if I wanted the best. So I estimated $1,000. It ended up being $2,636. And then everything else we still have yet to book. The honeymoon, I put $3,000. I know that's super low. We're for sure probably going to spend more than that.
For sure.
We do have to have transportation for our guests, and then we do have to have bathroom rentals, rehearsal dinner. We're going to have an Airbnb for our bridal party, obviously, for the night before. And then we do have some activities for our guests that I did not want to give away, but we have quotes for those. And then, of course, all the little things that add up, like stationery and all that good stuff.
Okay, guys, so I just did a little off-screen math here, and I totaled up everything she has here except for the rehearsal dinner and the Airbnb and the surprise activity because she didn't provide numbers for those. And again, remember, keep in mind that some of these numbers she provided are just estimates still. She doesn't have the actual number, the ones that don't have hearts next to them. So that includes the estimates down towards the bottom, which we know are going to be more expensive than what she actually listed because she's been off by like 100% or more on like almost all of her estimates so far. And I have $102,890. Now here's the thing. I don't know what she or her husband or her fiance does for a living. So listen, by all means, if they can afford this and this is a drop in the bucket for them, by all means, do your thing. And if this is something that's very, very important to you to have this one day be some huge affair, which I know even in my culture or my family's culture, having huge glamorous weddings is a thing. So if that's the thing you want to do, cool. For me personally, I don't know about you in the comment section. Let me know what you think. But $103,000, again, we can go ahead and call this, let's say $125,000. Just because half the estimates she has down there are probably gonna be way off. Plus we have the big surprise, which is probably gonna be something quite substantial, you know, based upon what she has here so far. We're looking at $125,000. That's, I mean, what do you wanna compare that to? That's a college degree. That's 1/3 or 1/4 of the median home price in the US right now, okay? 25% of a median home price. That's a down payment on a median home price. I'm a single guy, so take it with a grain of salt. I'm unmarried, I'm not engaged, and I'm a guy. And so I know that my opinion on this is gonna be a bit different than maybe someone who's not in my position. So I get that. I just think that for one day, which I get is a very special day that's supposed to be something you look back on and remember forever and cherish. Not to be cynical, but chances are maybe 40% of those are not gonna last. But anyways, that aside, I get that you wanna make it a great moment, but you can't do it for less.
How much did it actually cost for you to get married? Hi, I'm Candace, and on this channel, we talk about all things wedding. Today's wedding is from Jessica, and she got married in the beautiful state of Georgia. Jessica would like to stay anonymous, so all of the photos are not of her, but these prices are exactly from her. The couple got married at a private estate. This cost them $86,000. For her wedding dress, hair and makeup, bridesmaid dresses, groom attire, and groom suit, this costs $28,000. They had 150 guests, so for all the food, the open bar, the desserts, and the espresso martini tower, this cost them $136,000. For all the flowers and arrangements, this cost them $62,000. Jessica was key on having the best videographer and photographer, and this cost them $41,000. They had a live band, a DJ, and a string quartet for the ceremony. This cost them $31,000. They had a limo for their wedding party, and they had transportation for guests. They also rented a vintage car to take them to and from the reception. And altogether, this cost them $10,000. And they couldn't do this alone. Jessica decided to get a wedding planner, and the wedding planner's service fee was $30,000. And we can't forget anything I missed, like the gifts, the invites, and the $15,000 tip. We'll need to add $30,000 more. So in total, this beautiful Georgia wedding costs over $460,000.
All right, guys, let's be honest, okay? I'm gonna go to one that's a little more realistic because this is obviously crazy as heck. Like, this is someone who has a lot of money, ton of money. As a matter of fact, one of the comments simply says, Jessica has money, and I would agree with that. Like, let's be honest, how many people in their everyday life, right? People like me, people like you, people like the Joneses down the street and the Richardsons up the street. How many of us could really afford to spend $500,000 dang near on a wedding? Let's be honest, not many of us. So this obviously has to be someone who has a lot of disposable cash, disposable income, high net worth individual, I would have to guess. Either that or they're bat-ass crazy and they just mortgaged their entire life on a one-day wedding. So let's see if we can find something more reasonable.
It's officially been a full week since I got married, and I want to talk to you guys about the cost associated with my wedding as a 2025 bride. As a 2025 bride in an economy where people are expecting to pay a minimum of like $25,000 for their wedding, I want to talk to you guys about how we paid less than half of that. There's not a lot of transparency around the costs associated with a wedding, so I did take some notes based on the costs that were associated with our wedding. So I'm going to go line by line, and then I will tell you guys the total final cost. So for cake and cupcakes, like our dessert table, we had 7 dozen cupcakes and a cake that could feed 65 people. That ran us $632. Our decorations, so all of the physical decor items were $400 through Amazon. And then all of our artificial flowers were $400 through Amazon. Our venue accommodated our ceremony and our reception all in the same building on this really, really large floor plan that was separated by 2 separate rooms. That ran us $1,543. That included a bartender for the night. That included an elevator operator, a day of coordinator, and then the property manager that helped kind of coordinate things with all of our different vendors that were arriving throughout the day. Our food was through a local vendor that cost us $677.85, and that was to feed 75 people. We overshot the head count so we could make sure that we could feed the DJ, the photographer, all of the staff that were working the venue, not just our guests. My dress was from David's Bridal and ran me $297. My shoes were $58 off Amazon. My husband's tuxedo rental was $195. Our photographer, which before I even say the total was worth every single freaking penny, $2,700. My son's tux purchase and his little shoes off of Amazon were right around $108. Our DJ ran us $1,245, and that was for ceremony coverage and reception coverage, which was like 9+ hours of total service. Our photo booth that was provided from that same DJ was $650, which gave all of our guests physical printouts, and that was a hit throughout the entire night, and I would do that 10 times over. It was such a great investment. My hair, I ended up doing my own makeup. I am a bridal makeup artist, so I did my own makeup. I also did my mother's makeup. That was $265, including the hair cost for my travel. The trial, the day of, and her travel, so $265. So the grand total for all of the costs that we covered out of pocket was $9,162.85, still under the $10,000 budget that we had from the very beginning to not exceed going into this wedding. Do not let social influence, do not let other people on social media, do not let your friends or family give you a false expectation of what a wedding should cost. You can absolutely have a beautiful wedding, exactly what you envision, for under $10,000 if you shop smart. Yeah, that is what my wedding cost me and my husband.
All right, so she said something very important there. She said, don't let social influence make you think you have to spend an extravagant amount or a huge amount of money on your wedding. Here's the thing, like I said earlier in the video, my culture is they have very big, extravagant weddings. It's known for that. I know other cultures, it's the same thing. Like Indian weddings, I know they have very large scale, grandiose weddings. I'm sure it's the same in other cultures as well. And so that's from a cultural perspective, like as far as say nationality. But then you also have the social pressures of just your immediate family, no matter where you're from, even if it's Midwest US maybe. And of course now add in social media. So we have all these external pressures on us now, making it to where we think we need to go above and beyond in certain areas, right? It goes along with the whole idea of FOMO, or along with the idea of looking at people's social media feeds and thinking, oh, they're living these amazing lives. I want to live that amazing life as well, and possibly going into debt for it. Now, personally speaking, I don't even want to pay $10,000 for a wedding. But again, like I said, I'm a single guy. And again, I know that not to sound like, you know, and I don't want to sound a certain way, but you know, from a stereotypical point of view, you could say wedding days typically tend to be more so for the bride than the groom, from what I've been told, what I've seen, what I experienced from friends who've been married, from popular TV and movies, right? We can kind of agree on that. So obviously take it with a grain of salt from me, but let me know what you think. I think that okay, for me, I'm gonna pay it in cash. So if I have the cash, let's say I have 10,000, 15,000 in cash, by all means, I'll pay it in cash. We can have the best day ever. But I'm not gonna go into debt for a wedding. And whoever I end up marrying or getting with, I would imagine that we're on the same page with that. That she would be like, you know what? I don't wanna go into debt for a wedding either. And we would be like, okay, cool. You agree on that? Cool. You know, and we can do it a way that we can have close family around and save up for a wedding. Maybe we go get married at the courthouse to start with, and then maybe in the future we save some funds up or whatever and have a bigger wedding. But the way she did it, this is more reasonable. Obviously, the first two that we looked at, one of them, the person was probably super rich, right? That's the second one we looked at. The wedding was like $500,000. I mean, that's probably a whole nother level of wealth. Then you have the first person who probably wasn't uber rich, probably just maybe high income earners, her and her husband or fiance, and they spent all that money, or they're going to spend all that money on a wedding. I think those are the people who maybe push other folks that may not want to spend as much and maybe want to spend more like this woman wants to spend more than they would otherwise spend, because they look on social media and see people like the one from Malibu, no offense to her, people like that who are like, yeah, I'm spending $150,000, $120,000 on a wedding. And I'm gonna guess a lot of that's gonna be financed. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, right? Some people, by the way, even if you don't have to go into debt for it, even if you have the cash, that cash can be put to better use. Not to say that a wedding is not a good use and it's not a good, you know, amazing day, but it's one day, right? It's one day. That's the thing. Like, yeah, you have the pictures, but you know how it is. You do something and you'll talk about it for maybe the week after that. People might ask you. And after that, a month later, maybe you have one or two people ask you about it. You know, maybe someone goes on social media that hasn't been on there in a while and likes your post. But a couple of months down the line, a year or two down the line, you're not going to think about it. But that $100,000 could have been $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in the stock market. Maybe not in 2 years, but you get my point. So, or you could use that money for a down payment. But again, I'm not counting their pockets. Maybe they have the cash for it.
My wedding cost me $3,000.
Wow.
Yeah. My wife and I invited our best friends. And anybody that was in our wedding had been to our house for dinner.
Yeah, very close.
Yeah. We had like 50 people who, by the way, we invited for the day on Friday, on Wednesday.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Yo, what's up, man? Yeah, what are you doing on Friday? Can I meet you for lunch? Yeah. That's how I told them. They didn't know they were coming for my wedding.
On gifts.
I didn't have a registry in my weddings. I just didn't want any gifts from people. I don't want people to say,
Oh my God, like I bought him a fridge. For what?
As if you don't have a fridge.
Telling people how you bought me no, bring yourself. Yeah, we had a charity that we had.
Oh man, your wedding sounds so beautiful.
I'm telling you, man, we need to reconsider our friendship circle.
And everyone ate a 5-course meal.
Oh, 5.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was endless alcohol.
Come on now. We know how
people-
Kenyans do.
Some of them could make it for lunch, some of them couldn't make it for lunch. That shows you where that person has placed you in their lives. And the ones who could make it are the ones who are actually my friends. There was no way I was telling my dad in advance. He'd bring a bus from the
For the village.
Yeah.
How did he take that though? Because parents don't normally like
He was
that.
very pissed.
Yeah.
But on the day of the wedding, and he came there and he saw
That's
the vibe
it.
that was, he understood.
He understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
My parents still speak of our wedding as a very good day for them. So I'm just telling young people out there, at the end of the day, you have to understand, you do what makes you happy. So for some people, they like the big weddings, some people, but do what you can afford. And the wedding is not the marriage.
Really love hearing the way
Yeah.
you guys done yours. Like, is
Okay, so I added this video in for a few reasons. I will touch on them all each individually. So he said a couple things here that I think are very important. Do what you want to do that you think you find enjoyable, whether that's a big wedding or a small wedding, but you do what you can afford, big thing. He only invited people who are very close to him that could make it in short notice. And that was his way of weeding out people who he thought should be there. And then also the fact that he is an African man, right? He's Kenyan though, from what I can tell, what they said. But nonetheless, still, I don't know how Kenyans do their weddings, but again, African, let's just say they like bigger weddings. He went against the grain. and went against that cultural norm in a sense. So what I'll say about this is one thing he said that I'm not completely in agreement with. He said, you know, he called people like on a Wednesday, the wedding was on a Friday, and if they couldn't make it, he's like, well, that shows you where they place you in your life. Not necessarily. People have things come up. That's very short notice. I have people who are close, I have close friends who are like brothers to me, and I could call them on a Wednesday. They answer the phone, but they may not be available Friday. Maybe they got called into work. Maybe someone in their family's sick. Maybe, you know, a whole bunch of things. So that's a little bit extreme, but overall, I like his idea of, because I've been to a few weddings. And the first time I went to a wedding, I was in shock because I didn't realize that the majority of the wedding, like 80% of it, is the reception. I think that's what it's called. After the actual I do, right? The you know, I do, yes I do, the kiss, all that stuff, right? It's paying for other people to party and drink. And I'm like, why would I go into debt? Okay, let's not say debt. Okay, fine. Maybe not everyone goes to debt. Why would I spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 plus to pay for other people to eat, other people to drink, and other people to have a good time? And at least, and this is at least, at minimum, 50% of those people are not even really my friends. They're barely even Facebook friends. A lot of them are plus ones. A lot of them are people who, you know, are friends of friends. Like, why am I doing that? I don't get that. To me, that seems off. If anything, I've heard people I've heard come up with different ideas on how they do their wedding. Some people say they do a destination wedding because that way they know people are paying for their own tickets and their own accommodations. And so if they really want to come and support you at your wedding, they'll come and pay that on their own. You know, you just pay for the venue at the actual location. I was like, okay, it's not a bad idea. Or this guy has an idea where he found his way to only invite people who are actually he deems as close friends, right? I don't have as big of a problem paying for my close friends and family to come and celebrate with me for my wedding. That's fine. But even if you're someone who has a huge friend circle, probably isn't going to be in the hundreds, I wouldn't imagine. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, actual friends, not just acquaintances and people you've done business with, stuff like that. But anyway, like I said, let me know in the comment section what you guys think. What do you think is too much for a wedding? What do you think is too much for a wedding? A, just the maximum amount you want to spend on a wedding, or that you have spent on your wedding. If you would go back and do it again, the max you would spend this time. How much of that you think is reasonable to put on debt versus paying in cash? And what are your thoughts on what I just said about how, you know, a lot of people that come, you may not even really ever talk to. They're like Facebook friends at best, right? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that's something that maybe is a bit, I don't know, too much, for lack of better words? Or do you think that's just kind of how it is and it's fine? So anyways, that being said, guys, thanks for sticking around this far in the video. I really appreciate it. Feel free to give the video a like and to subscribe if you feel so inclined. And until next time, make smart financial decisions.